All right, folks, so we got some breaking news here. We've all been waiting for the shoe to drop when it comes to Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor, with regards to his investigation into, of course, Russia. Well, the New York Times is reporting, it's breaking news, that I'm going to pull this up 1 second. Shelley, give me a second before I pull it up. Go to my iPad here. Here we go here. Go to my iPad now. According to the New York Times, Paul Manafort, who once ran Trump campaign, told to surrender by federal authorities. Let me go into the body of the story. Sorry there, folks. We had a problem with that. It's okay. There's literally, it's just dropping. Paul Manafort and his former business associate, Rick Gates, were told to surrender to federal authorities Monday morning, the first charges in a special counsel investigation, according to a person involved in the case. The charges against Mr. Manafort, President Trump's former campaign chair, and Mr. Gates, a business associate of Mr. Manafort, were not immediately clear, but represent a significant escalation in a special counsel investigation that has cast a shadow over the president's first year in office. Now, of course, Manafort had done all types of business overseas. He also, this according to the New York Times, his name appears on documents linked to companies and Mr. Manafort's firm set up in Cyprus to receive payments from politicians and business people in Eastern Europe. Records reviewed by the New York Times were also dealing with violations of federal tax law, money laundering, and whether he disclosed his foreign lobbying. Also, remember, it was Manafort who also led the effort to make some change in language of the Republican Party platform when it came to the issue of Ukraine. Let's go to our panel here. Eugene Craig, the Eugene Craig Organization, Republican strategist, also Long Victoria Burke, analyst for NBC Black, and Malik Boyd, host of Heart of the City radio show in Philadelphia. So now we know the first indictment. Paul Manafort and his associate Rick Gates.
So the thing is this, I think I see where Mueller's going with this. If there's anybody in the Trump world that would be willing to flip and willing to open up and willing to literally point to every dead body he possibly can, it's going to be Paul Manafort. The one thing that Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Charlie Black specializing in is surviving and getting out of sticky, slippery situations. So yeah, I think, what we all were expecting, either Manafort or Flynn, and came out to be Manafort, and let's see, what comes out of the Manafort indictment. If I could quote Chris Metzler, as a frequent guest on here, this thing's only going to expand, not contract.
Again, he was the guy who got the most attention other than Michael Flynn, and because there was a clear money trail. You had bank accounts. You had him saying one thing then another thing, and this had been building since last summer.
Yeah, and it gets international really, really fast. And that's why I think that it's the discussion that Glenn was having with regard to a state case versus a federal. Manafort does have part of his residencies, his many residencies are in Trump Tower in New York. So I would expect that they would have some sort of parallel charges that are state, because I cannot believe for 1 second that Donald Trump is not going to put something out there immediately to indicate a pardon. Even without an indictment, even without specific charges.
But Malik, here's what you also have here. This whole issue with Cyprus and the bank who was on that board. Trump's Commerce Secretary, Wilbur Burke.
I mean, here's the reality. Manafort was the quarterback. So they're getting ready to pop the quarterback, bring him in and find out the plays, find out the receivers, and what routes they were running. And that's really what it boils down to. And I echo Eugene on that. Grab the guy who knows the playbook and dig straight down. That's what's happening.
Yesterday, I was on ABC This Week, and this whole issue also came up in terms of Manafort. And the thing that I spoke about is whether or not Republicans are going to be patriotic and say, wait a minute, I'm America first, or am I going to protect somebody who's in bed with the Russians? Here's that comment.
The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not imploding. When you control 31 governor's mansions, when you control legislatures, House, Senate, and the White House, more importantly, the judiciary, you're not imploding. Yeah, you have these internal fights, but this is about power. This is not about principles or character or morals and values. They want to maintain power. Trump is the vessel that allows them to do so. And so they'll fall in line. Jeff Flake, that wasn't courageous what he did.
He was going to lose.
Courageous is to still run. Courageous to say, I'm going to campaign around Arizona and speak the truth. And if I lose, that's fine. I'm not giving anybody props for giving a speech and cutting and running. No, you stand up and you stay in the office. You challenge them. That's how you do it. But people have to stop thinking the Republican Party is dead. They're not. And when you see what's happening in North Carolina, what is sadistic what they're doing, what is undemocratic, with Wisconsin, those states, we ignore what's happening in these states. Texas, 5 times they lost in the federal courts over voter ID, cost $3 million. It is real what they're doing in the states.
And that corresponds.
All right, folks, that was the not sound bite. I'm going to play the correct one again, where I was talking about where Republicans are on the issue of patriotism. Because what we've seen here, you've seen Republican media outlets say Mueller needs to be fired. He needs to be, also, you've seen folks on Fox News, oh, shut this down, get rid of Mueller, arrest Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry, are you on the side of America? Or are you on the side of Russia? Here we go.
Here is what is laughable. We literally watch a campaign of folks chant, lock her up, that we cannot have a president under investigation. And we are here right now. This is the real test as to whether or not Republicans will actually put patriotism above partisanship. Will conservative media folks actually speak truth or want to defend Trump at any and all cost? I love it how people are complaining about players who take a knee in the flag, but then want to excuse what Russia has done. That is the real issue here. And what Mueller is doing what a prosecutor should do. Get to the truth. Remember, Whitewater started with one thing and ended with another. This is what happens when you go for a federal investigation.
Katie, that is
why do you think that patriotism has something to do with admitting Trump's wrong?
No,
he doesn't think he doesn't think he's wrong.
Brian,
they don't believe he's
Brian,
wrong. There's no evidence he is wrong.
Brian,
so what is patriotic about saying somebody's wrong?
Brian, this is a guy who will knowingly lie and not admit the truth. So whether he says that is irrelevant to me. The bottom line is this here: when you have a foreign country that is clearly, undeniably, was involved in our election, not just Excuse me. I'm not talking about that. I'm speaking of Facebook ads. I'm speaking of bots. I'm speaking of all of that. All Americans should want the answer and not partisanship.
Folks, see, that's going to be the test right now. I mean, it's a little hard, Lauren, to say, oh, make America great again. Oh, put America first, when the Republican Party now has to make a choice.
But none of that matters, because the only thing that matters to the Republican Party right now is keeping power. That is it. They don't care what they have to say, what they have to do, what they have to message. They are going to, and I don't know why they're actually panicking, because even if the president, which I don't think would happen, got impeached, you still have, of course, Mike Pence. So it doesn't really matter. But there's this sort of panic of, this moment and this particular president. But they don't care what they have to say. I mean, they don't really. You see the messaging now. It's all of a sudden it's on Hillary Clinton, which is, of course, through the looking glass.
That was a very blatant distraction. But I do think when you have with Paul Manafort being the one that's first popped, as we said earlier.
So much for starting low.
So much for starting low. But secondly, I mean, there's anybody in Republican politics that literally knows where all the bodies are. It's Paul Manafort.
I'll tell you the prediction.
He's been involved in every convention since 1976. He's been running international game like this with Roger Stone since the late 80s. I mean, this literally could open up a Pandora's box like we've never seen before.
So you're assuming he's going to actually talk?
Oh, I know.
I think the president. I think the president is going to either fire Mueller or say something about a pardon right in front of everybody's face.
Shelley, 1 second. Shelley, go to my iPad. This is also a
would be crazy.
media staked out. This is a photo of Paul Manafort leaving his Alexandria, Virginia home. Clearly, he's dressed and head to turn himself in. Go right ahead, Malik.
I don't think that Trump is going to fire anyone. I think that would be absolutely crazy, but like Lauren said, you just never know what will come out of 1600. At the end of the day, though, this is a party that has its back against the wall in the darkest alley. They're not going to acquiesce. They're not going to cooperate. They're going to fight. So to your point, Eugene, look, it's gloves off and they're swinging.
All right, folks. Let's go back to the breaking news we had at the top of this hour. Paul Manafort. He has been indicted by federal authorities as a result of for tax fraud and other charges as well. He has already turned himself in to the FBI here in the nation's capital. According to the Wall Street Journal, one of the charges includes tax fraud. Joining us right now, of course, we chatted with him in the last hour, is Kwame Manley, partner in litigation department, Paul Hastings, former federal prosecutor as well. And so when you look at him being charged, we look at his protege, Rick Gates, being charged. This is the first shoe to drop. They're going, but so by also using tax fraud. Remember, that's how they got Capone. It's amazing how tax fraud is always used in a lot of these cases to capture someone.
Absolutely, and look, this is the significant part of it. Bob Mueller has an array of different charges he can bring. When you have the allegations that these two individuals did a substantial amount of work in Ukraine, in Russia, what that tells me is that they've been following the money. And I've worked in Ukraine, I've worked in Russia. There are a number of oligarchs there, and the way funds are transferred for illicit purposes can raise a whole host of both federal and state charges. And again, I want to emphasize this, that the federal charges are to tax fraud. Again, the indictment is coming out, we're reading it now, but there could be money laundering charges, there could be wire fraud, mail fraud, and not only do they have exposure on the federal side, but if you don't pay your taxes on undisclosed income in New York State, there can be New York State charges. And again, we talked about this earlier in the segment, that Trump doesn't have pardon power over those state crimes. The other thing that's very important is that it shows the depth to which they're looking into this investigation. To get Manafort, which is expected, to get one of his proteges, which is a little less expected, means they're going to go all the way down the line. And the whole point is you identify those individuals who are most likely to flip. So arresting them now, telling them that there are significant federal charges and state charges, you flip those individuals to work your way up.
And of course, Trump couldn't help himself. He tweeted this at 7:37 this morning. Report out that Obama campaign paid $972,000 to Fusion GPS. The firm also got $12.4 million really from DNC. Nobody knows who okayed that. Of course, he wants to distract as much as he can. It ain't going to work today.
It's not going to work. And again, so significant, as I said in the last hour, the fact that they had a no-knock warrant for Manafort meant that they were so concerned about him either destroying evidence or hiding evidence. And essentially, this is what's going to happen with Trump. You have all of these oligarchs who are paying money, allegedly, to Manafort. You trace the money, you trace the funds, you see if it's on your tax returns. There are some reports of $30 to $40 million of money going from Ukraine to Manafort and his firm, going from Russia-backed oligarchs to his firm. And again, as Mueller said, there's a federal crime here.
All right, then. So we'll see. He's supposed to be arraigned later today. And then we'll see the next indictments come down. Kwame, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh, my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no.
That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.